Alright, I'm not gonna lie with you, I didn't like this movie that much. Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I'm gonna be talking about Avengers Endgame by myself, hence the name Lone Wolf Reviews. As you can tell, Allie's not with me. I still want to do Twas and Talk with Allie. It just, the scheduling to get her here and when we both have free time to record videos and what have you has become a little harder to do than I thought. So there will be videos with just me talking about things when I can't get her over here, because I do want to talk about more movies and things like that in general, just so I get better at it, and also just because I want to do it, because I've always wanted to do that. So today we're talking about Avengers Endgame. It is the 22nd. Is there that many movies? It's like the 20th something Marvel film that's been released by Disney, and it's supposed to wrap up all these stories over the years of Marvel films since 2008 with the first Iron Man. This is supposed to wrap all those stories up into one neat little package, and it does it okay. Doesn't do it very good, but it's okay. I don't love the movie personally. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it could have been done a lot better, especially with Infinity War. I thought Infinity War was really good, and then you watch that, and then you watch this, and it just doesn't work, man. Infinity War had a nice, serious tone to it while keeping with the Marvel fun. And this movie is like them being like, ooh, we went a little too far into that dark area. So we're going to pull all the way back and just go back to Marvel fun. And it's almost too much, where it just doesn't feel right. You know, you have this movie that's so well crafted and focuses on the bad guy and the heroes lose, and then this movie comes in and just kind of rectifies all that, which, you know, we thought that's what was going to happen, and sure enough, that's what happens. Spoilers. So, before I get into like negatives and all that, I do want to go over stuff I liked. I think the acting's all really good from everybody. Everyone does a really good job. I think the only person who kind of, you know, is questionable is, I guess, Chris Hemsworth. I'll get into the stuff with Thor later, but it's just really odd choice, to be honest. But I think all the acting's really good. All the actors from Marvel have been great yet thus far, except Brie Larson. We'll get into that too. See, I'm already getting into into negatives, but I do really like the acting. I think that all the special effects and CGI is really good, except towards the end. There's a lot of butts in my compliments to this movie. I think the score is serviceable. They reused that Avengers theme a little too much, like they kind of did with Infinity War. I thought they did that a little too much in that movie, and in this film they do it just as much. There's not really a unique score for any character. I wish there was. That's one of my complaints about the Marvel movies, that they just really haven't had great music in terms of original score. Nothing really sticks out in your head. There's only like a couple tracks or songs that really do stick with you over the years, but for the most part they're pretty forgettable. One thing that I really liked about the movie was the cinematography. I forget the guy's name. I'll put it up here for you guys. But the cinematography is the same guy who's been doing the cinematography for every single Marvel film that the Russo brothers have directed. But he also did the cinematography for some of the original Neil Blomkamp films, such as District 9 and Elysium. And he's great. And I wish I knew his name. It'll be up here so you guys can see it. But the cinematography in this movie is really nice. There's some really nice sequences where the camera just moves throughout the environment while you're following the characters. And I love that kind of stuff. I hate flat shots in movies where it's just very generic, you know, camera work, and this movie had some nice cinematography, so that is the plus that I did like about the movie quite a bit. So the movie's 3 hours long. I think it's 3 hours and 20 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And does it need to be that long? I don't think it had to be. I get it. It doesn't feel like 3 hours, which is nice. The pacing's really fast. I don't know how it'll feel on second viewing. I've only seen the movie once. I don't know how it's going to feel if, you know, I see it multiple times and if it's going to drag at any point. But it had a brisk pace, but I don't know if it needed to be as long as it was. I'll have to think about that a little more. I just think 3 hours and 20 minutes is a little much for what they did in the story. I didn't feel like it was necessarily necessary. Alright, so let's start off by saying that the beginning of this movie is very quick. Okay, so Tony Stark and Nebula are stuck in space, alright, and they're dying. This is after Infinity War, I guess a couple days after, a couple weeks, and they get rescued by Captain Marvel just like that. They're just instantly rescued and brought back to Earth. And I thought that was very fast. I thought that was going to be like, they weren't going to go back to Earth for at least like an hour or something into the movie. I thought there was going to be a lot to do. I really thought this movie was going to take place directly after Infinity War, and then eventually there'd be a time jump. Or the time jump would be, you know, right when the movie starts. But the movie starts right after Infinity War, pretty much, just a couple weeks. And the Avengers kind of assemble to go take out Thanos with the help of Captain Marvel, who I want to say, I thought Captain Marvel was an alright movie, and Brie Larson was okay. I thought she was a bit like wooden in terms of acting. She was very bland, just, you know, very deadpan expression, delivering all of her lines. She's just a fucking asshole in this movie. I don't know, like, why? Like, all these characters that you've come to love, and then this character comes in, she's just a dick to everybody, and I really don't like her. And she's horrible in this movie. Every scene with her I hated. I did not like her at all. She's just an asshole to people, and you don't know why. It's like, why are you being such a dick to everyone around you? You know, she even, like, says, like, if you had me, we could have stopped Thanos. It's like, you gonna blame that on all these people that, like, risked their lives to save the universe? And then, like, just say, oh, you would have won with me. Like, she's just not likable. But either way, they go to the planet where Thanos has his farm, and there's this really good scene where Thanos is essentially saying, you know, he destroyed the stones because he didn't want anyone to, you know, reverse what he did and what have you. And everyone's all tense and they don't believe him or anything like that. And then Thor just chops his head off, and that was great. I loved it. The scene was tense. It was, you know, just everyone was so mad, and, you know, they wanted revenge. And Thor is just heartbroken that he failed. You know, he's lost so much. You know, his brother's dead, his mother's dead, his father's dead, his friends are dead, his home is destroyed. He's lost everything. And now even more that he cared about is gone. Like, half the universe is gone, and it was all on his shoulders. And for him to chop Thanos' head off like that and walk out saying, you know, everyone was saying, like, what'd you do? And he's like, you know, I aimed for the head. I really liked that scene, and it really had a nice emotional weight to it. And then the movie jumps 5 years later. Alright, so before I start talking about the actual plot, I want to talk about the characters a little bit. And Iron Man is great. Robert Downey Jr. has always done a great job as Tony Stark. And his story and plot in this movie, I think, is really well done in terms of, like, with his daughter and being with Pepper and wanting to bring people back, and he feels responsible for certain things that have happened, especially with Peter Parker. And all that is great. And I really like how he was tense with Captain America when they got back from space. I thought that was all great because that has been the first they've seen each other since Civil War, and I really like how that was handled. I thought that was handled really well. I think Chris Evans does a great job as Captain America. He always has. The same with Scarlett Johansson, and everyone. The characters all feel consistent, except Thor. They do a really weird thing with Thor, and I don't like it. Thor has been a joke in Marvel for a very long time, where he was so serious no one took him seriously, so they made him into a joke in Thor Ragnarok, and that movie was a lot of fun, but also had a bit of a serious undertone to it of all the stuff that was happening to Thor. But he was kind of just going along with it because he's so mighty he can't be offended by anything, or, you know, he can't be sad by anything or anything like that. And then Infinity War came around, and it's been the best portrayal of Thor ever. Thor was my favorite character in Infinity War. He had this redemption arc where everything was taken from him, his eye, his hammer, and then all of his family.
I'm only alive because fate wants me alive. Thanos is just the latest in a long line of bastards, and he'll be the latest to feel my vengeance. Fate wills it so.
And what if you're wrong?
Well, if I'm wrong, then what more could I lose?
And so he gets his eye back, and he gets his hammer back, and even more powerful. And then he just goes on this, rampage to kill Thanos, and he makes a mistake. He gets that, I'm gonna get the last word, or I'm gonna torment my tormentor, and in doing so, Thanos gets away with the snap, and Thor feels responsible. And I love that. I love what they've done with Thor. And then the beginning of this movie, he has the same, he's just depressed, and he's angry, and he's mad, and he wants to kill Thanos, and he does. And then when you jump 5 years later, he looks like out of Duck Dynasty. He's got a big beard and curly hair, and he's got a beer belly, and he's a mess, and he's a joke, and I don't like it at all. You took Thor and you made him into a joke, and then back into a hero again, and then he became a joke again. I just don't like it. I do not. And it's just really upsetting. I don't like what they do with Thor in this movie at all. It's really annoying. Especially when he was my favorite part of the last movie, and then he comes into this one, and he feels nothing the same. Like, I get it. I get what they were going for, but I don't like it whatsoever. So, it might just be me. I hate it. I really do. I do not like what they did with Thor at all. Thor is the only character that feels out of place. Everyone else feels great. Rocket and Nebula are a highlight by far. I love Rocket Raccoon, and Nebula is really, it's always been a fun character. And I just might be biased because I love Guardians of the Galaxy so much. But I do not like what they did with Thor out of any of the characters. So the general plot of the film is that they're going to get the stones back by using time travel that Ant-Man introduces from Ant-Man and the Wasp. That horrible film only had one good scene at the end. That's what everyone claimed. And it's the only scene that's relevant to this movie is that in the quantum realm you can travel through time. And it'll only be for a couple minutes or hours to you, but it will be longer to them in that time. In like the time vortex and all that quantum realm, whatever. Bunch of nerdy shit. They go back in time to get the Infinity Stones before Thanos even gets them, so they can make their own gauntlet and they can snap their fingers and reverse everything. That's the plan of the movie. That's their plan. And that stuff's fun. That stuff's done really well for the most part. I really enjoyed what I don't like. They go back in time, and what I really like is that it's really seamless in terms of all the events that happen in those films, such as the original Avengers they go back to, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Thor the Dark World, out of all movies. They go back to those films' plot lines, and it feels consistent with those films, which is really cool. And I really am impressed that they were able to do that. Like, it doesn't feel out of place at all, which is really cool. Like, it's just seamless. You can't tell. Even with the actors, the actors get older, and you can tell slight differences if you compare them from even a couple years back. People look different, and they don't, which is really cool. This really pulled that off really well. But the thing is, like, all that aside, it's really well done. It's really, it's good. And the things that happen in those scenarios are interesting because they start to change things that happened in the past. But I'm not a big fan of time travel. I never have been, and I don't really like it in stories that much. Time travel has always made things just really confusing and convoluted, and always is kind of cheap to me, where, like, your story can have big consequences, Your story can have big consequences. It can be this dramatic thing that happens, and then you just go back in time and you can fix it before it ever happened. And I get it. That's what they were planning on doing from the start. And I saw that coming. I thought they were going to do time travel, and sure enough, they did time travel. But I just don't like that in stories. I feel like if you set yourself to this goal, okay, we're going to kill off these characters, or we're going to do this, and this is going to how the story's going to go from here, and then you just reverse all that, it cheapens the original story that you had. Like, Infinity War doesn't feel as poignant now. Like, it's hard to explain. Like, sure, there's consequence at the end of this movie for what happens in this movie to get all these people back, but it's not as big as a like impact as Infinity War had, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Now okay, so they get the stones, and I don't want to get too much into that. There's some fun sequences in the past of how they get these stones back and what have you to bring back to the present. The best part by far has to be with Black Widow and Hawkeye. They go to the place where Thanos got the Soul Stone, and in Infinity War, he had to sacrifice someone that he loved, and that was Gamora for him. And for this, they need to do the same thing. The only way to get that stone is to kill someone, a soul for a soul. That's what the Red Skull says. And Black Widow and Hawkeye both care about each other a lot. They're best friends. So either one of them has to die to get this stone. And there's this really fun sequence where they're both trying to sacrifice themselves, and honestly, you don't know who's going to do it. For a second there, I'm like, okay, Natasha's going to do it, but then Hawkeye's going to do it because he became this edgy anime lord, and then Black Widow's going to do it, then Hawkeye's going to do it, and then they're both going to do it, and they're fighting each other who's going to do it, and then it ends up being Black Widow. And it was sad. It was sad to see her go, and I really liked how they went out with that. I liked how they stuck to it. She is dead. She's not coming back. And Scarlett Johansson is no longer in the Marvel movies. And that sucks because I fucking love Scarlett Johansson. She's like one of my favorite actresses that works in movies. But she's gone now, and they killed her off, and I really appreciated them doing that. And like I said, I thought it was going to be Hawkeye, and then it was going to be her, and then I didn't know who it was going to be. And, you know, it ended up being her, and I'm glad it was her because it really just added some impact to the movie, you know? Some stakes. And either way, they all get back with the stones, and they build a gauntlet, and they're going to snap their fingers and bring everyone back from the dead. But Thanos from the past has figured out what they're doing. He arrives in the present. They snap their fingers, they bring everyone back from the dead, allegedly. And then Thanos bombards the Avengers base with just missiles and torpedoes and whatnot. And then he wants the stones. He wants to get all the stones because they've been collected for him. And he's thinking as the guy in the past, like, okay, the stones are all here. Might as well get them now and do what I want before all this happens. So they can't reverse what's happened. And he's gonna kill the Avengers and take the stones. So everybody praised Thanos in Avengers Infinity War because he was a villain that you understood his motive. He wanted to wipe out half the universe because he found that the resources and overpopulation was a problem. And you know that's bad, but how he portrayed it, you understood, like, oh, I see his point. I see why he wants to do that. He's not just some mustache-twirling villain who wants to destroy the planets and every living thing and just because he's evil. He's that in this movie, and it really fucking sucks because you watch Infinity War, and he's not that. Like, he is, and he's not, because he wants the universe to be grateful. There's the line where he's saying, at random, you know, killing half the population. He doesn't pick who gets to live and who gets to die, and that allows, you know, it to be fair and all this stuff. And in this movie, he literally says he's going to destroy every living thing down to the atom and then rebuild the universe so they don't have to remember who has died, so they don't have to suffer in that regard. And it still works, but it doesn't. He becomes just this evil villain in this movie. And in Infinity War, he wasn't really, like, he was still the villain, but the movie focused on him the most, that it almost made you root for him. And this movie doesn't do that, and it really just kind of kicks Infinity War in the nuts, because that movie worked so hard on establishing Thanos, and in this movie, he's just the mustache-twirling big purple bad guy, and that really kind of is annoying to me. So, either way, the Avengers are trying to fight Thanos off. You got Fat Thor with both his hammers. I didn't mention that, but he gets his hammers back. If you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. And Iron Man and Captain America. The three, you know, big leaders of the Avengers. They're the title characters of the Avengers. Always has been. You know, Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America. And they're going to face off Thanos. And that fight was fun at first, and it just kind of, you know, you're waiting for something to happen, and you're waiting for one of them to die or something, and I liked it. It was personal, but I feel like the choreographies could have been better. Like, the fight on Titan in Infinity War was so well done. In comparing it to this one, it just was just punching and randomness. Like, they're just punching each other, essentially. they're hitting each other with laser blasts and punching each other and hitting each other with hammers and shields and swords. And in Infinity War, he's got the gauntlet with all his stones, and he's able to do all sorts of weird shit. And it was just more entertaining, I guess. This one was just kind of a generic action scene. There's some fun bits. Big highlight for the film, I'm going to guess for a lot of people, including myself, was Captain America having the Mjolnir. That was a lot of fun to watch because, you know, everyone knew that Cap could pick up the hammer. So that was really cool. So he uses the hammer and the shield at the same time. Thanos, you know, just almost destroys the shield. He's going to beat everyone. And then the people that died in Infinity War show up to where the Avengers base has been destroyed. So it's, you know, the army of Wakanda, all the characters that died on Titan, everyone that got erased comes to fight. And it's just too much. I didn't like it. It's Thanos' army versus the Avengers and their entire army. And it became from something being personal into just over-the-top action with hundreds of people fighting, so you can constantly have creatures and people getting killed and just minions for them to squash. And it's just too bad because, like I said, for Infinity War, the whole fight on Titan was just Thanos versus the small group of Avengers and the Guardians, and that was really intimate and fun. Like, I love big battles and what have you. That's all fun, but it was just too much. It just didn't feel as personal as I would have liked it to be. And the movie has a lot of, like I didn't say this, but it feels like best hits of the MCU, a lot of references to other movies. They're quoting themselves from other movies, and it's just kind of cheesy and corny, and I just didn't like it as much. I was hoping for a more satisfying conclusion to this story arc, and at the end of the day, they beat Thanos, and it doesn't feel very earned. It really doesn't. It feels just kind of like part of this massive clusterfuck of fighting that, Thanos has now been defeated, and, you know, the Avengers won the day, but Iron Man died, and it was like, okay, you know. Infinity War ended with, like, half the cast dying, and this movie ends with Iron Man and Black Widow essentially dying, and that's it. And it just doesn't feel like as poignant, you know? And I don't know how I feel about it. It just... It's okay at the end of the day. I'm getting kind of burnt out on the Marvel films. I have been for a while. I did not like Captain Marvel. I really liked Infinity War. I didn't really like this movie that much. I definitely want to see the next Guardians of the Galaxy, especially with James Gunn back on board to direct. If it wasn't going to be him, I probably wasn't going to see it. Any of the other Marvel movies, I might check them out. I don't know. I'm just not as interested anymore, especially with this movie that kind of, you know, wraps everything up, or attempts to. And, yeah. I don't know. It's alright. It's not great. It's not my favorite film probably that comes out this year, nor my favorite Marvel movie. My favorite Marvel movies is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, the first Avengers, Iron Man, Winter Soldier, and Infinity War. Like, I'm not huge into the rest of the movies. I think some of them are pretty bad, and other ones are okay. And this one is okay. Some parts verging on pretty bad. I wouldn't say I'm the best at this yet, reviewing and what have you. Hopefully my thoughts have come across okay. I would like to improve. Any criticism is appreciated. I know I need to get my thoughts together a bit better. But overall, I find this movie to be a bit bloated, especially towards the end with the amount of characters. I felt that it should have been more intimate. I thought some of the characters just didn't feel the same, and some of the story arcs and how they concluded it, and the humor was a bit too much, especially for the tone they were going for with the previous film, especially being, and you compare it to the first one, which is hard not to do because this is like a direct sequel. It just doesn't fit right to me, you know? I feel like it should have carried that tone a bit better. And it does towards the start, and, you know, you know, I'm excited to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Definitely. I love Guardians of the Galaxy and James Gunn. So, you know, especially with the aspect of Thor maybe being involved, that would be really fun. I love Rocket Raccoon in this movie, and just, you know, seeing more of him will be great. Having Gamora back is a little iffy. I don't know how I feel about that. I just feel that there really wasn't too many stakes. Like, I felt that for Infinity War, and I was thinking, yeah, I like this movie a lot, and I liked what they're going for, but for the most part, none of this is going to matter because everyone's going to come back, which they did, and it really doesn't feel like anything really happened. All that Thanos went for doesn't really pay off in any way, and I guess, you know, who would have thought it would have went that way? Of course the good guys are going to win and triumph over evil at the end of the day, but the villain doesn't even feel like the same character in this movie, and I don't know. I gotta work on these reviews a bit better. But yeah, this is the first by myself. I know my first one I did with Allie wasn't that great either. No. Alright, thanks for watching. Hopefully this video was enjoyable in some way and made some sense. I'll see you guys in the next video.